Good morning, and apologies for being a bit late. So just allowed time to just run away with me a little bit. So I've had Jeff give me a poke, which is a good thing, and we are here now. So let's get straight down to it. Jeff will be in with me shortly. He's on his way. I've only just sent him the link, so he'll be hot-footing it over. Let me just double check. I don't need that, I don't think. Cancel that. Hey, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, good, mate.
Oh, sorry about that. I completely lost track of time.
It happens.
And I'm glad you nudged me, because I was about to go downstairs and get myself a brew. So it's a good job you nudged me.
Well, you can go and get a brew, mate, in a minute. As soon as I start talking.
Yeah, well, very, very, very quickly, unless you've got anything pending. The FTSE's going to open up in a couple of minutes.
Yep.
And we are driving to the upside. Very, I think, a bit of an ominous pattern here. It looks like a head and shoulders. I'm going to bring this onto a clean chart just to kind of show you. So that there is this ominous pattern. Looks like a shoulder here. Oh, actually, we can use our new tools here. Should be able to say that this is the left shoulder. Oh, that's a bit annoying. That's moved.
You love it when that happens.
Let's see if this actually is gonna do that every time. So I've got this as my left shoulder here, and neckline just dragging along here somewhere. This looks like a head up here, and I just want to see whether this becomes a right shoulder. So ominous pattern. Little bit kind of perturbed, I have to say, this morning, because I am looking for downside off the back of some pretty weak Chinese data suggesting that that the market is suffering from this trade war, but the market's been creeping forward, and really it's been creeping forward over a few days now. I still think we're probably likely to get, if this right shoulder doesn't hold, I still think we're probably likely to get this a little bit of resistance here. But if the right shoulder does hold, at this stage, I'm still quite bullish on it, because I just don't see what's going to bring it down. Yes, I think that Chinese story is pretty negative. And it would suggest that we were going to get some downside, but because there wasn't, a huge reaction initially, I wonder whether the market's just quite happy just to kind of sweep it under the carpet for a little while. So I'm actually looking for upside, but I'd quite like to see the price now down to around about where this pivot sits. Well, in fact, there's two pivots. That here, together we've got overbought price action by the RSI's standard anyway, so we don't want to be going long just yet. But I think creeping down into this area would suggest that we could go long. Would we want to play it to that point? Well, possibly. I mean, that's my only issue with trading this down here is that I think the market is probably a lot stronger than it is weak. So because of that, it might be a dangerous play to try and trade this to the downside. I'd like to trade this to the downside if I thought it was going to come down, bounce, give me a lower high, and then go. But what I'm concerned with is that we come down, bounce, and then attempt to actually get back to the head area. So I am bullish this morning, mate. I'm looking bearish on the medium to long term. So within a week or a month or so, I am looking for some downside, but I don't think the timing's quite there yet. And where we do have a maybe suspicious catalyst, if you like, in what we have here, we've got the data from China over the weekend. Now let me just
240 billion versus a 310 previous and a 300 forecast.
Yeah,
Oh, there it is. You've
this
got
is
it.
it.
Right.
This is it. And actually, I've never seen this before. Have you ever seen this this United States denominated
No,
trade balance?
no, I
That,
haven't.
that looks like a new one to me.
I can
And
understand why they'd want to know that, but yeah, sure.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Well, let's have a look at it. Trade balance in US dollars terms. Okay, so it's not maybe as
No, that's not what I thought it would be.
no, me neither. Let's have a look how long it has been there. Oh, it looks like they've been well, unless they've just managed to get this detail added in. But okay, that's not as significant. But the trade balance certainly for China not too positive. And that could spook the market somewhat. But as I say, it doesn't look at this stage that, you know, from the price action that the market is that bothered. So, you know, if it does come to the downside, I would suspect there's probably going to be buyers probably overpowering the sellers around about the pivot areas. You know, there's two stacked pivots in the same area, so that's going to be a hard place to get through. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see a fib down there as well. Let's have a quick look at if this is the trend move. Yeah, 61% retracement right on that level as well. So there's way too much in the way to suggest that if we were to trade it lower here, that we're going to get through this point. So if anybody was interested in a little scalp, then I'd be looking to take pretty much all my profit at this point, because if it crashes through, you can always re-add, but it's got to establish a little bit. Now, I wouldn't be completely adverse if we saw this. If we saw this price action kind of doing this for, over the course of the next hour, little bit weak as we kick off the morning, not massively, but a little bit weak. We're just looking at this on a 5-minute chart. We've got this suggestion that we could start to move and ease the downside from here. So I'm not adverse to a short here, mate, I have to say. Just got a few questions about the validity of a short in the bigger picture. Now, I have to. Whoops. I'm just lining up to see whether there are any trades on to take to the downside here as it goes. Am I still on?
Yeah, mate.
Oh, cool.
Well,
okay, I
just
had a bit of a.
I'm not tuned into the YouTube, so I don't know if that's going or how that's working, but I'll do that.
I just had a slight blackout. I'm lining up here, mate, to take a short on. I think there's a possibility that I'm going to trade this. I just want to see if I can get all my accounts open in time. If I can, I'm taking this, I think.
Do you need me to do something?
No, I might not get my accounts open in time. Not really, mate. I'm going to take this short. I'm going to take it. If I can get my account, I just need one more account open, and I'm in. Come on. There we go. Right, I am short on the FTSE. On all accounts, there we go. Yeah, I'm short on the FTSE. I've taken the short. Now, as I say, I'm probably not going to trade it for too long here. If I can get it down to this point here, then I'll be content with that, mate. I'll probably get out. Obviously, what I'd like to do, as always, is see if I can get the picture to develop. So it might be that I don't get too much of a picture here, but if I get a chance to allow this picture to develop, what I'd quite like to do is see if it can get down here, and then give it a little while to see if it's holding. Because if it holds, I want to come out. But if it comes through, that's going to be extremely ominous. If we get price action which manages to kind of get through the 61% Fibonacci plus the weekly pivot plus the daily pivot, that will fill me with confidence that we actually could be starting something a bit more significant. And the truth is, I do want a longer term shorts here. So that's what I'll attempt to do, mate. I'll attempt to give it some time. Certainly, if we get down to this point, then that means that I can make this trade well and truly safe. So just to kind of round up, I've taken a short on the FTSE 100. The China numbers are I guess the reason. That's my driver. The numbers out of China just aren't too impressive. I think it's a weak reason. Got to be honest. I don't think it's that solid. And I was questioning whether we were going to get any kind of reaction. But because we did start to get something that looked fairly good for some downside, I just want to see if I can get some follow through. And that's the key here. What we might just have is a move to this point here and then a turnaround and pop back up again. Or what could be better for me is if we pop down to this point, turn around and pop back up again, because at that point I have got plenty of room to take my profit. So that's what's going on here, mate.
Okay, if it did turn out to be the Head and Shoulders, at what point would you look to get back into it short?
Oh, well, I mean, that's a really good question. So what if I took profit here and it keeps coming down?
Yep.
If I take profit here and it comes down, I might well take it on the pop back up again, because it looks to me, if I can take profit here, that price point will probably be re-seen. I would have thought if we're going to crash through this point here, we're probably likely to bounce at the monthly pivot back to the daily, weekly pivot, and then I can get back in, which to me would look like a. Correct me if I'm wrong. Would that be more of a slingshot?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I'd be looking at a bit of a slingshot trade. If in fact, I won't coin that, mate, because I don't understand what I'm talking about. So I'll be looking at something that something that bounces on the monthly pivot, back to the daily pivot, and then I'd go short again. What would be amazing if I can get it all the way down here, because then I've got a completely different play. Now there is another option, which I'll tell you what, I won't go into the other option just yet, because it may well be. I've got a slightly different way to trade, which I really like, and I think it's kind of advanced. And if you think we should talk about it at some point, I'm more than happy to. But what I'll probably do is rather than explain it, I will just do it, and we'll see how it works out. And I'll try and show everybody as we go. You might not get the opportunity because we might not be on air, but there is a different way to play this, which I quite like. This is good price action for me, though, mate. I have to say that's a pretty nice dive, isn't it? So far
on the hourly chart, looks good. Yeah.
It does, and it suggests that we could be getting some significant weakness here. So far so good. And I suppose for right now, mate, but over to you, and let's see what you've got as well.
All right, mate. Well, let me see what I've got first up, because it's Monday and I don't spend any time in front of the charts over the weekend, and I need a chart to share, which will be that one, I believe. Yep. And what you're seeing on the FTSE is very similar to what I'm seeing on the Euro. This is on a daily chart, where we've had a big rejection of the monthly pivot and the weekly pivot last week. And also on Friday, we've had a rejection of the weekly pivot again. I don't like that. I'm not sure what I don't like. It's too obvious to me, I think.
Oh gosh, you're talking about the Euro. Yeah, I was looking at Euro as well. Yeah, it does look a little bit plain, doesn't it? It looks a bit like it's one of those that you just sort of think, well, the trigger's there, the setup's there, just get in. Is price action currently above that weekly pivot? It is, isn't it?
It is above the new weekly pivot, yes.
The new
definitely.
Weekly pivot, yeah. I suppose that's the only caveat, isn't it?
Bang on today's daily pivot by the look of it. Let's
go
to a smaller time frame.
Yeah. Do you know what I've been thinking about with this Euro? And I don't know what your thoughts on it with this are, but I kind of thought this against all dollar pairs. if Jerome Powell is going to be is going to be lowering interest rates, why would the dollar strengthen? Isn't it going to take? Isn't it going to take some of the other central banks to also have a position around about the same kind of time for that to happen?
I think, and Julian explains this better than anybody, but I noticed the world starting to catch up, and I see a fair bit of commentary around this at the moment. And it's to do with the shortages of US dollars worldwide. Now, what that actually means stretches my not my credibility, but my understanding of how that would be. So everybody's screaming that there's no US dollars for sale or something. I really don't understand the principle behind it, but there is a current worldwide shortage of US dollars. And as I say, there's a fair bit of commentary around that at the moment. In fact, it's a great question to come back to Julian with this evening, if he's in, and I'm pretty sure he is. But that is driving the US dollar more than anything, as I understand. And as you say, if they're talking dovish, if the Fed is talking dovish, then why is the dollar increasing in value? And that appears to be the only reason that I can see at the moment. Well, that's not quite true. There is still a disparity in interest rates, because what the US is still at 2%, isn't it? I can't remember exactly what they are now. And everything else is, getting close to 0, 1% or less. So there is still an interest rate differential in favour of the US dollar, and therefore it's attractive in that regard. But this shortage, again, which I don't completely understand, of US dollars worldwide, is apparent. It's supply and demand, in other words, and that's what my understanding is as to why the US dollar is strong. That said, and getting back to the euro, this could well be a trap for bears here, in my opinion, because there's two ways to look at this. The daily chart is telling me that there is a massive, you'd call that a morning star, I would imagine, Ash.
Yeah, gosh, yeah, and yeah, as you say, it's a fairly clear signal, isn't it? I mean,
but so is the with trend as well.
Yes.
So the with trend trade is short here under this.
Yes,
bar,
it is. Yes, it is. Yeah.
And if you miss that one, go under this one. But the counter trend trade, which is let me put that into perspective.
Has the lower that bar been penetrated? Have they managed? The market managed to drag a few people into that?
Oh, which bar, mate?
The bar 2 days ago.
Yes, earlier on today. Yes.
Yeah, they dragged some. My only thing about that bar is that it looks to me like a bar, or almost a sleight of hand bar, because it's not really telling us anything but indecision. The fact that the body is closer to the lower end of the bar is around about the only thing that the bears can really go on, because it's a doji.
Well, there's probably a couple of other things they can go on. If you go a little bit wider, you could have a very strong opinion that every time we get a rally back to the monthly pivot, we come back off it, we fall back off it. Apart from here where it's been broken.
Yeah, that's
but
fair.
Now we're back underneath it, and we're coming back off it again, and this is the bottom of this channel. I said I'd have a good look at this today, and if this was a bullish decisive bar, then I'd be a bear, but it's neither. It's just a spinning top sitting in the world of nowhere, really. But there has been a retest of the bottom of that channel, and in concert with the monthly pivot. So, if I'm a trend trader, then I can probably get interested in that bar for sure. But again, and your question was very pertinent, has the low of that bar being penetrated? And that means, of course, that those shorts have been triggered.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting part about that is what happens next, of course. We may well be putting in a higher low here. we may well be, and I'll have a good look at this tomorrow. I don't really want to trade it now because it's too iffy, in my opinion. But if that turns out to be, let's say, a low test bar or even a bullish engulfing or something like that, in particular, I suppose, if it closes above the open of Friday's bar, that's kind of getting me into the picture of, okay, this is a higher low based on a morning star, as you would call it, and therefore it's a long setup. Completely counter trend, of course, but that's kind of where I'm at. If I'm absolutely honest, I'm confused by the price action.
Yeah,
I think that's where I'm at. But I can totally see why you want to get short here if you're a trend trader. It makes perfect sense to me.
Well, and also, even if you're a fundamental trader, because yes, we've got Jerome Powell coming out and saying that we're going to get a lowering of interest rates, but that is, it happens, but there's very few times that you get such a huge flag of exactly what's going to happen from a central banker. I mean, there's no doubt they're going to do that. So at some point, that's going to become priced in. But what we also have coming up is Mario Draghi. We got a rate decision on Thursday. Is that right, from Europe?
Yes, that should be right. Is it going to be Mario Draghi or is it going to be Christine Lagarde? I don't know.
It is Draghi. It is Draghi. Whether it's one
Draghi.
last time, I don't know, but it probably is. But it is Draghi. Not to suggest that people think that there's going to be any kind of rate movement, but there's always some detail in that statement, and I think that's going to be the key aspect. Mario Draghi is very, very keen to suggest that there's stimulus that could be added, and this is why I am always a little bit surprised that when I see a central bank statement on the horizon and price action in the euro being positive, because more often than not, he tries to at least suggest, whether they're going to do it or not, he tries to at least suggest that there will be some stimulus added to try and buoy the European economy. So, that just from a technical point of view, we're looking at short, and from a fundamental point of view, I think there could be a case to be made for the short as well.
And that's the problem. There's a case to be made for both, in my opinion. Not so much fundamentally from a bullish point or standpoint, or even am I actually suggesting a reversal here is the question, I suppose. And I've got to wait on that, and that's where I'm at. I can't make a call right now because this could go either way for mine. One thing I probably could look at is trading an OCO either way. But it's a big candle also, and I'm not that fussed on it, I've got to say. So I think I'm leaving the euro alone today, and I want to see what happens. I think today's candle may be significant, although it is a Monday. In particular, if we start to get a close above the monthly pivot, then I'm definitely looking at a rally here. But there's a lot to be said for either direction, in my humble opinion.
Incidentally, as well, if anybody's got any thoughts on that, post them in, because we've got our system a little bit better now, so we can see comments and questions. So if you've got any thoughts on that, then post it in, and we can discuss that, or thoughts on any other charts as well. To be fair.
Yep. Happy days. All right. Well, I'm going to leave the euro alone and go to the pound, which, unsurprisingly, I suppose, has come off its big rally of last week. Where do we now see the pound? And I'm waiting on a weekly pivot test to show me the answer to that question. I really don't know how we stand in Brexit terms again. Are we now in a hiatus again, or are we going to see more action this week with Parliament sitting again, I assume?
Well, today is quite a significant day because there is a bill going through that would stop Boris Johnson leaving without a deal, and that's going to potentially extend Article 50 to January next year. But there's a chance that Boris Johnson will ignore that bill, which means that he will be breaking the law. So there could be, you know, we had all this talk of impeachment last year with Donald Trump. Well, get ready for a rerun. Everybody says that Boris Johnson is the English Trump, and he may well be around about to prove that theory true, because there's potential problems coming for him if he decides to ignore that and break the law. So plenty more twists and turns, mate. The interesting. I'll tell you what was interesting the other day that I read that currency traders in the pound would prefer a Corbyn government. Now I don't know how aware you are of Jeremy Corbyn, but he's like a student protester. He's not really a kind of a politician that you could really hang your hat on. He's more of a protest politician than anything else, and he's just so happens he's the leader of the opposition. But the pound traders said that they're more comfortable with Jeremy Corbyn and a Labour government than Boris Johnson and a Tory government, which has never been said in history, that you'd go, Labour.
They said nobody ever.
Yeah, this is the thing. I mean, they said that there would be a run on the pound if Labour got into power, but they're so concerned with Boris Johnson's approach. His brother recently walked out of government with him because he doesn't like his approach on Brexit. He's just lost a very senior Tory MP in Amber Rudd, who I think may well be a future leader in the making. She's just walked out saying that there's just no preparation for a deal. All the preparation is going into no deal. So that in itself is concerning for the pound. Boris Johnson seems to be very popular in the country from what I read. That Brexit and Boris Johnson are fairly popular. So there's this kind of Parliament versus people thing going on, where the rest of Parliament obviously are against Boris Johnson, and Boris Johnson is representing the people. So Parliament versus the people is a side narrative. So what it comes down to is, if Boris Johnson has a winning day, we'll probably see the pound weaken. If Boris Johnson has a losing day, we'll probably see the pound strengthen. So it's a difficult one, mate. And all you can do is keep your ear to the ground. And I still am of the thought and thinking that we probably have got, the time just to let this unfold with facts rather than conjecture. And perception, because that's what the move we've had with the pound the last few days has been about, isn't it? It's been about people thinking that the Leave voters are winning the battle, but I think we need to wait till the battle is over, really, before we're comfortable trading in any direction. And I think if you are going to trade a direction, then why not plump for the long?
Well, I'm pretty much in the former boat that you mentioned, is leave it alone for a tick. But that said, there is a very strong technical reason to trade long if we get to this weekly pivot, or even better, the monthly pivot, and put in a reversal bar, because that's going to be a higher low on the top of a double bottom. I will have to trade that, whether I'm able to control myself as I should, and trade it at a very small risk will be probably the question that I need to ask myself. And the answer will have to be yes, because of the exact reasons you just said. It's kind of impossible to predict what's going to happen here, and it's, as you just said, it's binary. If he's a good day, then it's bad for the pound. If it's a bad day for him, then it's good for the pound. How the hell are we going to know that?
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But as you say, once the news is released, then maybe there's a good reason to jump on board.
Yeah, which unfortunately is not going to be until the middle of October. That's the time we're really going to know. I mean, but obviously this proroguing of Parliament is the first battle that we need to see how that eventually unfolds. Does he win that? Does he win that? Because
Can he have a good day? I mean, can he have a good day today? Can he have a good day at all?
I think he could just ignore. The things aren't stacking up well. Well, yes, I'll tell you how he can have a good day. The way that Boris Johnson has a good day today is if they vote to have an election. If they vote to have an election, then we'll probably see the pound weaken for two reasons. One, because that means that Boris Johnson's having a good day, but also that starts to stack up even more uncertainty. So yeah, so I guess watch out for that. Watch out for that particular release, because I don't think it will matter. You know, people always worry that the news being released, you'll be too late to get in the trade. But I think there's certain news releases that it just won't matter. The pound will continue to probably tank to the downside if we get that announcement. You know, and as long as you're within a few seconds and not risking the house on it, then I think it's all right just to click in and sell. You know, if that is a selling opportunity, that's not the kind of headline that would promote any buying, I would suspect. So if you hear that they are going for a general election, then just click your button, no matter where the price action is. Would be my personal stance on that. I'm not going to say that's my advice, because I'm not qualified, you know, as neither a broker or a dealer to give advice, but I certainly would be saying that if I'm in front of the charts and all of a sudden I hear that, then I'm just going to take the trade. I'm not going to worry where it is.
Yep, happy days. Guess what? I won't be in front of the charts, because
you'll be in
way
bed.
too late in the day for me. That's exactly right. I've been watching the cricket in bed for the last 5 days.
Oh yeah. I do you know what? Usually the Ashes is the only kind of cricket game that gets me in front of the TV. But I've kind of missed a lot of this one. But it sounds like it was pretty good. I know England eventually got schooled by Steve Smith, but
yeah, Steve Smith and Cummins, the bowler. He's had a fantastic series. Smith's had an incredible series, despite being knocked out and missing one test. And yeah, pretty good result for Australia, I would have thought.
It's a very
good series.
Well, do you know what? It's got to be that, hasn't it? You've got to have England, Australia properly toe to toe. That's what makes you know. Well, you know, I would imagine anyway. When you kind of think of, when I think of the football derbies that go on, you want a strong Tottenham, you want a strong Arsenal, you want a strong Liverpool, you want a strong Man United, because you want a game out of those people. And I think it's the same with the Ryder Cup. It's the same with the Ashes. You know, and other rivalries that go on through, you know, throughout centuries. I think that's when those games are at their best, not when one is just way out in front of the other,
yeah, like
quality wise.
And who did they play the other day? Can't remember. I think they won by 100 points or something. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, have they got a right? Is there a classic rugby rivalry? I think the All Blacks seem to be pretty dominant throughout history.
They are very dominant throughout history. Yeah. Oh, look, there's rivalries, but they win most of them.
Yeah.
They're very, very strong, which is, you know, it's amazing. They've got a country of, I think it's now 4 million people, maybe even a tad more, but
yeah,
there's more sheep in New Zealand than there are people.
Yeah.
And they compete very, very well on the world stage in quite a lot of sports, but you know, they're dominant in rugby.
Well, there you go, man. I think there's a lesson right there for trading. Pick one thing and you can be the best at it. If you specialize in one thing, you don't have to kind of be dipping in and out of everything and become okay at everything. Just pick one thing, one currency pair, one indice, one strategy, whatever it is. That's the answer, really, isn't it? So it's probably to most things.
Mate, absolutely right. And it's going to be part of my talk on in Bali. Actually, is that very subject, or that's part of the topic I'll be talking about, is to you know, why go and trade 100 different things? Because, you know, it's too hard.
Yeah,
it ain't easy to keep following all those things. If you've got a strategy that works on every single industry and commodity and currency, two things: I don't believe you, number one, and number two is, how the hell are you going to keep track of more?
Yeah.
But you know, that's for each and every one to discover their own journey. There's no hard and fast rules about it.
No, but I mean, certainly I think that'd be the advice from both of us, wouldn't it? Just kind of try and focus on one thing. There's plenty of money to be made on one thing.
Agreed, and you get a far better understanding of one thing and I think it's far easier to trade one thing. But
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about the FTSE
especially
in a little while on that, because actually the FTSE's coming against me right now, and I'll discuss my thinking. Because I understand the FTSE. Well, I'll discuss my thinking in a moment. But you shoot first.
Yeah, look, I'm only going to do the Aussie now because everything else is going to be based on those three currencies that I'm going to be trading this week anyway. The Aussie, I don't believe, frankly. The rally that we've seen last week was due in part, well, due in most parts, I would have thought, to an extreme run of good news, and that included Chinese news. It included three lots of major news on the Aussie, which has seen this go about 200 pips, really. And that, to me, is more than sufficient for the Aussie to rally on the back of those news events. Getting back to the US dollar, a lot will depend on that, of course. Now, we've got FOMC next week, haven't we, I think?
Right? Is it that soon?
Yeah, I think
you might be right, mate. Yeah, you might be right.
I don't think it's far away. I'll just have a quick look on that.
Yeah, we should have really done the week ahead, shouldn't we? It's next week. Yeah, okay.
Yep. So that tends me to think that we're going to start, as you said before, we're going to start to see that being priced in probably as soon as now. And that kind of goes against my grain because that should see the US dollar weaken. Now, how do we manage that when we've got a bias short on the Aussie? Or sorry, when I say we, I have a bias short on the Aussie. And the reason I've got a bias short on the Aussie is that we are in Tumbletown, and we have been in Tumbletown for quite some time. We've taken this low out. When I look at this chart here, I'm starting to think exactly the same thing as I said on the euro and the pound. This is starting to look like a potential turnaround point. We're at a strong, and I'll go to the monthly chart even, we are at a strong support level, but it's the only support level for quite some distance. And it comes from over here. It's kind of the last port of call. And we've been flirting with this for quite some time, even going back to 2015, where we put in this double bottom at this level. And I probably would have said at that time, this is in trouble. If it breaks that level, it's going to go to here. Well, it took its time, but eventually it did break that level. And it's only broken that level just recently in the last, 3 months, 2 months, 2.5 months now. So it smashed through there on 2 consecutive months. That would have been July and August. And now we're retesting those particular breaks. That's kind of why I'm bearish, but the FOMC situation is giving me a little bit of the willies. I should explain why I'm bearish, because that doesn't make sense what I just said. It makes sense to me because I know how I trade, but probably doesn't to anyone who's listening. When I see a break and a decisive break and then a decisive retest of that breakout, which is probably this little consolidation period here, we're retesting that. That's exactly what we're retesting now. And when I see that happen, that gives me a bearish outlook. Not so much, I'm not predicting that the price is going to fall. What I am saying is if it goes back to there, then look out, because it'll come back to there with some purpose, and it will definitely look to test that low and in my opinion, drive through it and go down to this area here. So that's where my, I guess, longer term allegiance lies. It's with the bears. But when I think about this now and I look at that chart there, I think, whoa, retrace here back to these pivots and another reversal bar, that gets me long, biased, probably to here, maybe to here, maybe over to this area here. So I'm talking long trek. It's not going to be a short trip. We're not going to go bang straight up there, I wouldn't have thought. But that's kind of where I'm at with the Aussie. So I guess what I'm saying is I've got no bloody idea, mate, this week yet. I want to see something happen. I can see a case for both. on those three majors that I've just spoken about, with very much the pound being driven by fundamentals, as we've seen over the past whatever.
Yeah.
So I think, from here, if I am going to say there's one thing I'm looking for, it's going to be the retracement back to the pivots on all three. So the Aussie, I want to see that come back to here, certainly back to the broken trend line, but weekly pivot, trend line, monthly pivot. So I'm looking for retracement. It's at a resistance level that you can see. It's almost 68.5 cents, hasn't been there for a bit. So that's where I'm at on the Aussie. A little bit of a retrace back to the pivots. That seems to be underway already on the pound. And the euro, well, it's kind of tight in there already. So it's going to be a really tough one, the euro, to trade from my point of view, because it has got to the pivots already. In fact, it's stuck in between the daily and the weekly pivot now. It wouldn't surprise me at all to see this go back to the monthly pivot and just have a little bit of a rattle in between that, or in that vicinity, for a little bit yet, around about the 110, between 110 and 111. I would have thought that we'll be seeing the euro trade this week. I don't really see anything to move that outside of the press conference, which happens when, on Thursdays?
Yeah, for the ECB it does, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
and the rate decision.
Yes. What, you think there's going to be change?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I need to kind of get my ear on this one, because there has been a lack of comments so far. But so I'm going to get my ear to it when we finish up here. I'm going to do a little bit of work on what is likely to happen this week. But certainly when we look at the predicted forecast, it's talking about leaving it at 0%, leaving it on hold. But I think it's going to be in that monetary policy statement. That's going to be the key. So that's the thing that we need to be abreast of and read up on, and maybe the press conference later at 1:30. So I would have thought not until 1:30, 2 o'clock, maybe US session on Thursday, are we probably going to get some genuine direction out of this, out of the market. FTSE 100, DAX, CAC are on, all those guys, plus the euro, I think may well struggle this week to really find some direction. So
yeah, agreed. And that's kind of where I'm going to be looking. I'll be looking at a consolidation period in here.
Yeah.
Around about the daily pivot area. Whether it gets up to there and back down to here or not is really, well, actually be exciting if it does, because I'll be able to trade that back off here down to here and vice versa. But I think come Wednesday, Thursday, I'll be looking to put a box around this price action if it is there. If it doesn't break out, and if it doesn't break out, then I'll look to be trading a breakout come Thursday morning, I would have thought.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at, buddy. It's a wait and see approach, but
all right,
probably not looking to trade the pound too much until we see something unfold for Boris.
Okay, well that's pretty much ours. So I'm going to quickly talk about the FTSE. Anybody got any comments or questions or anything they want to quickly cover as well, or want us to look at? Then we are more than happy to do so. Otherwise, we're going to wrap up, and I'm going to wrap up with just a comment on the FTSE. Just now, it's not going to be necessarily the same approach for you guys if you're trading the FTSE. We're probably going to be taking different approaches, but let me tell you what my approach will be if you're trading the FTSE as well. Now, where's my there it is. Right, we should be on my screen now.
Gotcha.
So we saw the FTSE dive to the downside, looking pretty good to start with, and then cruise all the way back up again, and it's probably going to put some pressure on the higher point here. Now, This is. I'm not that concerned if I'm honest. If we break through this point here, it's likely we are going to the high, and the high is up at this level here. Now, the reason I'm not too concerned is I would be suspicious about us getting through that point. So I don't mind kind of giving up a little bit back here. I'm not going to hedge it. I don't think there's enough room between the high of this point and this point here. So I'll just allow that to happen. This trade will stay on the table, and I'm just going to see whether this does turn around here and start to move back to the downside. If we do break the highs. Now that's going to start looking a little bit ominous for this pattern, but it will depend on what time frame this all happens over. So let's say what can happen is the FTSE 100 moves to the upside. Let me just change my change to that's good. Right, let's say from here, the FTSE 100 in the next hour, not this hour. Let's say something happens like this with this price action. We've only got 15 minutes left, and I'm not sure what's going to drive it from here. So let's say that this ends up the same, and then the next hour we start to see the FTSE move to the upside, move to the upside, move to the upside, and by the time the hour's finished, it can't get through here, crashes all the way back down again, and gives me something of a reversal, let's say. Then, you know, that will still look like a left shoulder, head, and right shoulder, even though this price action area has been penetrated, because this tail will still suggest that the body that I'm interested in, the closing price, that will still suggest that the head and shoulders pattern is intact, and I'll be looking for some downside, maybe to this point here, where the pivot is, or I'll be looking, you know, to the neckline down here. So one of the other. So that's one scenario that could happen, which you know wouldn't concern me. In actual fact, it'd be pretty positive. The other possibility that could happen is, rather than the FTSE 100 moving up and down again, maybe it just moves right to the upside. You know, in a course of a few bars, it ends up moving to the upside, breaking this pattern. So then I won't be looking at this as a head and shoulders with a left shoulder, head and right shoulder. At this point, I'll be looking at this as a double top. So I'll be quite happy to suggest that that's going to be a double top. Now, if we break through there, then I will hedge. At that point, I'm going to keep this trade on. I'm not going to move this out of the way. And the reason I'm not moving this out of the way is that Chinese data is weak. But it's a weak reason to be looking for short, or it's not as strong as I would like. I should say that instead. But it's still a hint that these tariffs are hurting the global economy. And if the tariffs are hurting the global economy and they are not likely to be lifted until October, they're talking about, then we are likely to see further weakness in the data points. Germany, obviously, last week we had a pretty weak data point. Now China is following. So these exporting countries are looking fairly weak. So I'm not too concerned that I've got you know, a short in the market, even if the market takes off from here. I quite like the short. So I'm going to leave the short where it is, and I will manage from here. So if it breaks through this level, then I will buy. I'll be looking at a buy at this point, and I'll trade it as high as I can until I need to dispose of the buy, and then I will probably trigger in another sell, which might see me down a little bit further again. So I'm just going to let this unfold. Right now it looks okay, but let's say you know, it doesn't, and it ends up pushes up here. Then that will be my plan. Now, obviously, the price action right now is just starting to weaken somewhat. You know, it's weakening a little bit. So what does that mean? Well, that's probably going to suggest that if the price action, instead of moving to the upside, breaks down, then everything's back to normal, and I can trade it to this point here. Or if we really get some a decent move down, then I can start looking a little bit lower, and I can trade it all the way down to the neckline, which is somewhere around about the monthly pivot. So that there are my two targets effectively, with management, you know, within that as well. So that's the plan. So any questions on that, or any questions on anything else, then feel free to ask. otherwise, we're out of here, right, Jeff? And we'll be back later with the free show, and we'll be back tomorrow, same trade time, same trade channel,
Yep.
and whatever your thing was.
Whatever it was, yes.
Yeah, and that's us,
One
right?
day I'll watch the recording one day and find out what it was.
Yeah, it was a good one as well. It was right on the money.
Yeah, well, I'll have to look into that. Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll be back basically for the Open, won't we? So we'll be back 5 to 8 UK time, and running as long as we need to. We only really tend to do 20 minutes, but because we're in a trade and had other things to talk about, we went a little bit over today. But and we're happy to go a little bit over if people have got questions, aren't we?
Absolutely.
And want some analysis, but. If not, then we are professional traders, and we just have to approach the market professionally, which means actually just being a little bit quiet, listening to news, doing some research.
Now, people to ask questions, they ask it in YouTube. Is that right? They're not.
Yeah.
Part of the, right.
Yeah. Just ask them in YouTube. Yeah. Go to YouTube and.
And you're anonymous. We don't know who you are. Uh-huh.
Is that right?
Well, I can't see any names. Can you?
No, I can't.
When they ask a question, also.
When they ask a question, maybe we can. Yeah, not sure, but
okay.
Yeah. Okay, mate. Well, everybody look out for 9:30 as well. There's some news from the UK at 9:30 today, which seems to be the main focus. Oh, incidentally, the other thing is that the other reason I don't think we're going to crash through this area up here is because we've got such huge data points this week. You know, Draghi's on Thursday. As Jeff says, next Wednesday we've got the FOMC. I think Friday we got the Bank of England. So that's why I don't think we're going too much higher than this point if we are going. So I'm not too concerned with price action going against me a little bit here. Okay, well, let's wrap it up. We'll be back same trade time, same trade channel tomorrow. Have a great afternoon, guys, a great evening wherever you are in the world, and we'll be back for the free show in about 2 hours or so. And as I say, but back tomorrow. But I will see you then, and I will see you in a little while, Jeff.
Right, mate. See you soon. Bye, guys.